Smiling faces, the family way. Margaret, Lou, and Quilting will make your day.
Our next block that we're going to make is this one. It's called the Eccentric Star. I call it the Whirligig, but its actual name is the Eccentric Star. We need to make 12 of these. And this is made up of a whole bunch of half square triangles. And if you've ever seen my video on half square triangles, I'll link it below or up in a card. Half square triangles aren't my most favorite thing in the world to make, only because it's really tedious trimming them all up, because they do all have to be squared. Well, then I found this triangles on a roll. It's a great half square triangle paper. And I have gone ahead and measured out exactly how many I need and what I need to make. And this is what I'm going to use. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to go about using them. Here's my 2 strips of fabric, my darker color and my background fabric. I'm going to start by putting right sides together in just a second, and I'll show you. But I need to get the right sides together first. Okay. Once I've got my right sides together, just going to lay them down. And then I'm going to take my half square triangle paper. And the nice thing about this is you just cut strips and you put it together. And once you've got it together and you go to cut it apart, you are, when you cut it, actually squaring them up at the exact same time. So they do really save you some time. But you need to pin them well. I will give you that advance warning. Sorry for all the paper noise, but you do need to pin them well. So I'm going to show you on this one how I'm going to pin it, and then you can go ahead. In your cutting instructions, I did give you a little bit extra on each side, only because in the past I have found that when I have made these, the half square triangles, it just is nicer to have some fabric on the end when you go to trim them up and when you're working with them. So what I'm going to do is just take my pins. I'm going to put one across here, and I need to move it up because hopefully you can see what happened. The dotted lines are the lines you sew. The solid lines are the lines you cut. So what you want to do is make certain that your pins are outside of the sewing area. And I just do everything I can to keep it as flat as possible when I'm pinning this. And then I'm just, so you can see what I'm doing, I'm putting 4 pins in. So I've got my 4 pins, and then I'm just going to do that all the way down, holding it together. And then I'm going to start sewing at one end. I'm just going to follow my arrows all the way around. I'll come back up, sew the other way, and then we'll be done. I need to make 2 of these because I believe we need a total of 96, I think it is. Yep, we need 96 half square triangles in order to move on to our eccentric star. So I'm going to turn this facing you now so that you can see it. What I've done is I have just pinned it at every single block along the way, and I'll pin a couple, I'll pin a couple more so that you can see. Just holding it down flat, making certain that it's smooth. I get my pins in there, and I'm going to make a total of 96 half square triangles. So I will be back when they are all made, and I'll show you how we're going to go about putting the block together. I have all 96 of my half square triangles done. I'll open them up and show them to you. There they are. So I've got these all done. I'm going to take these in the house with me tonight and spend the evening ripping the paper off. And don't forget to turn your stitch length down. I think I took mine down to about 1.8. And this is how you're going to tear them. You're going to fold this piece over, and I just score it with my fingernail. I don't stretch the fabric. I just hold my finger or something underneath it, and I just rub it along it, being careful. Then I'll rip one side off, just going down like this. There we go. And then this will just come right off the same way, very easily. So I'm going to do that to all 96, And then tomorrow I'll be back in the studio putting my block together. Now we need to complete making our block, and here's my template showing you what it looks like. And it's just simple half square triangles. So we're going to make a total of 12 of these units, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to put mine together. I like to take things and make them as easy as I possibly can, because I figure the easier I make them, the less chances that I'm going to make a mistake. Well, that's what I figure. So hopefully that means that I will. So what I'm going to do is start by just laying this out according to the pattern so that I can make certain that I've got it right. Because with half square triangles, it can be pretty easy to mess them up. So I'm actually working with mine upside down for you right this second, but I will get it turned around so that you can see what it really does look like, I promise. You can see I haven't trimmed any of my little bunny ears yet, and that is something that I do want to do before I start sewing them, and I haven't gotten to that yet. So here is my basic 9 patch. So what I'm going to do is I will put these two together, then these two, then these two. Then I'll join these, and these. Then I'll join rows and rows till I have this basic 9 patch all done. All right. So what you're going to want to make certain of when you're doing this is that you have got your half square triangles in the right direction, because it really is easy to mess these up. We're only doing 12 of them, but we don't want to mess them up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up just a little bit, putting some space in between every single one of them. And then I am just going to take the remainder of my pieces, and I can just stack them right up exactly where they are. And then what I'm going to do is chain piece and just make certain that, you know, when I cut, or I'm sorry, when I sew, I'm sewing everything together exactly the same. So I'm going to turn these over first so that you can see how I've pressed them. All right, so there's our block. I'm going to flip it over. Whoops. I'm going to flip it over so that you can see how I went about pressing it. I did press all of my seams open. They're small blocks, so I really wanted to make sure that they laid flat. So that's how I did it. So the next thing I'm going to do is match up my seams here and here and here. I'm going to sew here and here, put my blocks together, and that will be done. And my blocks are going to look just like this when they're done. These measure at this stage 6.5 inches. They are going to finish at 6 inches. So once I get all 12 of my blocks together, I will be back to show you how we're going to go about putting our entire row together. We are working on this piece right here of our border. So we're working right here on this top strip. Now, as I said to you before, this whole quilt's been designed so that every step of the way we can double check our measurements and make certain that we're still square. Remember how I told you that every step of the way on this quilt, it's been designed so that we can double check our measurements and make certain that we are still square. So this is what we're going to do. We're working on the side strips. So it's this strip and this strip. That's what we're working on first. I'll bring it down again and show you. This strip and this strip are what we're going to work on first. So you can see I've got my 3 whirligig or eccentric star blocks out. And I've also laid out all of my little side pieces that help make it fit together. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start on one side and I'm going to attach my side piece to this block. I'm going to attach my side piece to this block. Now this is my end one, which belongs over there. And then my center block, I'm gonna take and I'm gonna attach this and this to it. Then I'm gonna come back and show you how we're gonna measure this to make certain that we stay exactly where we need to be on our quilt. All right, here's my block again. And do you remember how when we were squaring this up, we made this border just a little bit bigger so that we could square it down and then be the right size when we needed to add this border? We're gonna do the same thing again. So what I'm gonna do is take my measuring tape and I'm gonna measure across and make certain that I am the size that I need to be. So I'm 23 and a half. And again, I'm 23 and a half. And then down at the bottom, I'm 23 and a half again. So that I know, based on this, that my blocks, I'm gonna fold this a little bit so that I can get it into better camera view for you. I know that when I place this block and this block and this block, I need to measure across 23 and a half inches. Now, if I didn't measure exactly, I'm going to show you how to fix it. I'm going to measure these two, this one and this one, and I'm going to write those numbers down. Where's my piece of paper that I was using? Here's my paper. So I'm going to measure this one. I am 7 3/4 here, right? Yes, I'm 7 3/4. Oop, wrong number. And on this one, I'm 7 3/4. Double check. Yep, 7 3/4. And on this one, in the center, I am exactly 9 inches. So I know I need to be 23 and a half. So I'm gonna lose 1/4 off of this seam, and I'm gonna lose 1/4 off of this seam. So now I'm down to, whoops, I'm gonna move this because that's just too close. So now I'm down to 7 1/2 inches here and 7 1/2 inches here. I'm gonna lose an entire 1/2 inch off the 9. And the reason why I'm gonna lose a 1/2 inch off of that is because I need to take 1/4 from here and 1/4 from here. On this one, I'm only gonna lose this 1/4, and on this one, I'm only gonna lose that 1/4. Okay? So on this one, I'm gonna be at 8 1/2. So now I need to add these three numbers together. So 7 1/2 and 7 1/2 is 15. So I've got 15 plus I need to add 8 1/2. So what I am at is 15, that would be 23 1/2 inches. So let's say I was 1/4 of an inch too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece over to the cutting board because 1/4 split into 2 equals an 1/8. So I need to take 1/8 of an inch off of this and 1/8 of an inch off of this. And then I'm going to be able to perfectly fit my border in. So that's how you do it if your border was too big. If it's too small, you'd add to those 2 center strips. All right, we have completed this second row. Well, let's see, we've got, there's our star, 1, 2. We've now completed the 3rd border on our quilt along. Now, I want you to see at this point, I measure 35 1/2 inches square. So I wanted you to know that right off the bat. And how I did my last row, I showed you how I did the 2 sides, and how I did the top and the bottom was the exact same way. I measured my quilt in the 3 spots across the top, across the middle, and across the bottom. I took that number and I divided it by 3, and that told me how big I needed to be from this side to this side. So I took and I put these 3 together. So my corner, my little strip, my first block, Then I did my other corner, which is over here, my other strip, and then this block. Then I took and I put the center block and the 2 strips next to it. And I did have to make adjustments. So I adjusted these 2 strips because quite honestly, you're not gonna notice it when you get the quilt all together, that strip is 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch smaller than the other ones. So I made that adjustment. Plus I know how I'm quilting it, so it won't matter at the end. So that's the strip that I've done across here. So the next one that we're going to do is another border. Now I've just measured my quilt and I know I'm 35.5 inches square. So I'll be able to cut my first strip, which is the top or the 2 sides probably is what I'll do first. I'll cut my 2 strips, I'll get them attached, then I will press them. Then I'll put on my other 2 strips, my top and my bottom, and then I'm going to get my rail fence started. Then we've got another border after that. But I wanted you to see exactly where I'm at this stage. I am absolutely thrilled with the way this thing is coming out. I am really pleased. So I will see you next month for our border, and then the next one after that will be our little rail fence type, okay? I will see you again really soon. Thank you.